I'm here to talk to you all about social networking, setting up a favorable online image. This is something that is incredibly valuable. Whether you're looking for a job or looking to hire, you really need to make sure that your online image is favorable, it's professional, and it really benefits you. Now, as a student at the University of Kansas, I know the process of applying for jobs, and I've started to apply for internships, and one of the things I've done is gone through a complete overhaul of all of my information online. Everybody needs to know the best way to present themselves, especially as students, and it's really a reason that this is very important. Now, what's the first step you can take? One of the things you can do is Googling yourself. Now, a lot of people have this idea, and I know that it's like conceited or egotistical to do this, but you really want to Google yourself every 2 weeks because you want to know the information that's coming up. Now, a very rare scenario, but it's something that's talked about, especially in the New York Times article that I'll touch on a little bit more later, but oftentimes things come up associated with your name that have nothing to do with you. It might be another person with the same or similar name from the area who's causing trouble in any number of ways. It doesn't even have to be criminal, where an employer can see that and say, you know what, I don't want to hire this person. And yes, it's unfair, but it's your responsibility to know what your image is. So then you want to look on the 3 major search engines. Google, Yahoo, Bing, obviously. The 3 anyone talks about. Any other search engines you have, you can go on Ask Jeeves if it's your preference. But you want to make sure that you're searching all the different search engines, and then you want to take it a step further and look at the image search. People often forget to look for images when they're doing a search about themselves. They just see the words and they feel like, oh, that's good enough. But no, you're looking to see the images of yourself because oftentimes Facebook images, Twitter images, people have tagged you in images. All these things are going to come up, and you're really going to see how other people can view you, but you want to make it work for you. This isn't about avoiding trouble. You should make the internet work with you. You should make it a positive, reinforce who you are. For example, and this is something I'll touch on a bit later, but you could start a blog. You could go on Blogger, and Google does a great job of making it come up by the top, and it shows consistency, dedication, that you care about something. Now all of a sudden you have an online work where you can say, look at my blog. Maybe your employer Googles you and has that perspective of, let's see if we're going to eliminate a candidate. Now all of a sudden they're seeing work you've done, and the focus shifts to the exact opposite side of that. This is a person I want to work for me. Now moving on, there are a lot of myths that people have, and I'd like to address a few of them, and one of them is the privacy myth. Now as you can see, I have my Twitter account pulled up right next to me, and it's a private Twitter, but private Twitter is never actually private. Now, a lot of people know this, but I'm even going to take it a step further. It is being refuted and disputed in some states, but employers have clauses and can have clauses that say you must turn over your social media account logins to them. They can control how you talk about the company and how you talk about your position at the company. For example, one of the things I've done is I started working for a company called Fansided, which is a sports group of writers and bloggers that find nearly all of their work posted on the Sports Illustrated team pages. However, one of the rules they have is that no employee is allowed to say that they're a Sports Illustrated writer, because obviously it has a different meaning, but you could be fired, removed, or disciplined for such. Now, there are other problems with Twitter, including the instant reaction. You know, whenever you tweet something, you can delete it, sure, but it can be screenshotted right away just like that, and it's out of your hands. You need to be very careful how you interact with people. It's very easy. Twitter was made to be reactionary. So when someone is getting into a heated debate, it can be so easy to just call them a name, to say something like, wow, you're just being an idiot. Something as simple as that can really hurt your credibility. Use the block button. It's there for your safety. A lot of people view blocking someone as kind of a punishment, like, I've blocked you, now you can't follow me, you can't see what I'm saying. No, the reason that block button is there primarily is to help you avoid the people that you don't want to interact with. Twitter also has other functions, like you can set your mentions and see the people who are mentioning you only by people you follow. And then another way around this is, don't search for your name looking for trouble. Search for your name with a purpose. Never search just to see what people are saying about you just on Twitter. Facebook has a similar thing too, where you can set it so that you can only communicate with your friends. And that's something you should do, especially because it will limit how searches come up And that way, if someone is not a friend of yours, they won't accidentally be roped in with you just because your name is associated with theirs in one way or another, like in a school, in a workplace, or something along the sort. Now, it's important to know your history. What do I mean when I say this? Well, a lot of people think that, the past is in the past, and what you did in middle school, 6th, 7th grade, really won't come back. But I have a good story about this, in that one of my best friends, I was hanging out with him over the summer one day, and we weren't really doing anything, and so he had a really uncommon name. We got the idea to Google it, see how many of those people were in the world. And it may seem funny, but 6th or 7th grade, not really doing anything, sure, why not? So while we found he was the only one there, one of the first things that came up was a YouTube video he had posted for an English class. Now, this video had been posted a couple years before, and it made him look quite foolish. He was trying to characterize what a hyperbole was, so he was exaggerating everything, and he looked very childish. This is a problem. Now, it doesn't mean he has to delete things like this and that he can't have them online, but if that's the first thing that comes up when someone searches for your name, you have to think about the image it's creating. You have to think about the person searching for you who's looking at it and saying, is this the person I want to represent my company? And then vice versa, if you're an applicant, you're going into an interview, never a bad idea to Google the person interviewing you, get a little information on them, talk about things in common. There's nothing wrong with that. However, let's say you're going to be interviewed and the first thing that comes up is a YouTube video of them, drinking and partying or having just goofing around. It's a very serious job you like to work for. All of a sudden, you're not going to respect them as much, and you might treat them differently, and you may not want to work there. Now, it's important to know what mediums you're involved in, because there are so many of them, and you need to make sure you have a good idea of what you're involved with. Yes, there's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Google+, MySpace, Pinterest, Vine. You need to remain an individual. You need to make sure to put on a disclaimer. Never a bad idea to say that my views don't express those of my company, don't express those of anyone else, anyone I'm associated with. But again, you still need to maintain that professionalism, because otherwise people aren't going to give you that chance. Now, another myth is that people will change their name, and I'm sure most of us have done it. Like, they'll put their middle name as their last name or some variation of their name to be clever and thinking, okay, now it's private. No one will be able to find me. That is not enough. That is not enough by any measure. If you are referred to a job by an employee, it's more likely that the employer is going to go onto his social media page to find you rather than just doing a broad search for your name, especially if it's a pretty common name. You need to be aware of your presence on things like Instagram, Vine. Don't have links to piracy websites. Don't brag about doing something illegal on Twitter. Don't post a Vine of yourself doing things like shots if you're underaged. Make sure you know who you're associating yourself with and you're being professional. You want to look at it from the employer's perspective. WWYD, what would you do? So what's the first thing you're going to do? You have an applicant, you want to do a little check. You'd probably Google it. Now, a lot of people say, well, isn't this unfair? They're looking up my information, how is it fair? But let's be honest, these quote-unquote private websites are not private. You don't own the internet. You don't own Facebook, you don't own Twitter. These are not your things. You are accountable for what you do online, especially considering that the internet is primarily used to connect people. One part of that is making sure you have a professional picture for your profile picture on every account. Even if you have a private account, anyone can see your profile picture. You don't need any special access, which again, they can get. Anyone can see this. Now, I'm not saying it has to be a work of art. I'm not saying you need a senior picture, a portrait. It doesn't have to be professionally done. It doesn't have to be the greatest picture in the world. But what you do want is something relatively professional, or at the very least, something that isn't going to hurt you. If you truly want something to be private on Twitter, you want something to be private just in general, don't put it on the internet. You really have two options. You can keep it, out of the internet, out of online, or you can write it down, throw it away, burn it. That's about it. Anything you post online is there, and it's going to stay there. Now that we've moved past the justification of what an employer is going to do and why it's probably the right idea, let's talk about how you would do it. How would you search for someone? Well, you would definitely go on Google and you do Google Images, but it's going to be different depending on the job you apply for. If you're going to work at, say, a construction job, an entry-level position, or let's take your first job. You want to work in the fast food industry. You are starting college and you want to make some extra cash. Yes, they're probably not going to go too far in depth in figuring out who you are, and barring some major issues, you're probably not going to be in trouble. But now let's look at the other side of things. You're out of college and you're looking for a job. You want to be a PR director. You want to be a social media director. You want to handle PR for a major organization, athlete, celebrity, anything of the sort. They're going to look at the people you associate with on Twitter, Facebook, your friends, and beyond. This may surprise a lot of you, but I have a very interesting story on this from the New York Times. Max Drecker, chief executive of a social intelligence company, was interviewed. Now, he stated that he was able to eliminate candidates through social media, even for something as petty as one who, and I quote, belonged to the group, "This is America. I shouldn't have to press 1 for English." A Facebook group was why this guy was eliminated. He said it showed an immaturity and a potential superior attitude, and Drucker then said he pictured the applicant in front of him and he asked the apparition, "Does this mean you don't like people who don't speak English? Do you have something against them?" You really have to think about why. You have to take it that one step further. Why are you looking for someone? You have a position to fill. Why do you want to fill it? Because you need someone to get the work done. And who do you want there? Do you want someone who's going to be average? Do you want someone who's going to give your company a bad look? No. You want the best candidate. It's fair that the best person for the job gets hired, and it's very important to make yourself the very best version of yourself you can be, because otherwise you're at a disadvantage. Now, it is important to have realistic goals about this. The first thing is don't pose, because when you pose and when you try and create a fake presence, it always comes out. Employers can see through it. For example, if you apply for a company and then all your recent tweets and posts on Facebook are, "Wow, I love this company. It's amazing. It's the greatest company in the world," they're going to see right through it. I'm not saying, however, that you have to go over everything every day, every week, that you have to overhaul your profile, but there are some steps you can take. I talked about a blog. Having a blog has multiple benefits. If an employer is doing a background check and they search for you, one of the things they're going to see is that blog. Now, as before they're looking for any red flags to eliminate you, now they're looking at something that says, "Wow, this person is really dedicated and they really have work that they believe in." This is again why it's important to Google yourself every couple of weeks to make sure that if you are doing a consistent blog, that it's continuing to come up. You want to exemplify all your best traits because in the end, we're all human. None of us are robots. We all have limits. However, doing something like a blog can make that huge difference. And let's take it even one step further. Let's say you're in an interview or a meeting and your employer asks you, quite frankly, what makes you different? It's an interview. You can say anything. You can lie. You can tell him you work for NASA. It's face-to-face. It's not like he's going to fact-check right in front of you. You can say anything you want. But what you want to do is have something to fall back on like, well, I have a good work ethic, and look at this. I would like you to search my name, go on any medium, and see how I promote myself. I want you to see this blog I work on. I want you to add me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, I'll follow you back, add me on Google+. I want to connect with you and show you all the things I'm working on, and it also shows them that you have nothing to hide. Because that's what they want in the long run. They're not out to get you, and you're not out to trick them, hopefully. They're out to find the best fit for the company. The goal is to make them want you as much as you want them. Think about the pressure of talking to a teacher, talking to someone after class, that first job interview that you did. Now imagine that the person interviewing you wants you to work there. They saw your blog, they see your work ethic, they want you there as much as you want to be there. Think about the amount of pressure that would take off you. You now know that they're nervous because you're there. And yes, it may be building up your ego a little bit, but it's definitely beneficial. It can allow you to have greater confidence. It can allow you to seem just in a better place, and there are definite pros to the system, especially if you set those realistic goals. Now finally, this is all about taking steps. You have to start with the big picture. You need to make sure you know what's out there because quite frankly, it may surprise you, and that's where Googling yourself comes in. That's the first step. It's down low. Then you have the professionalism. You want to start to overhaul things, make yourself look the best you can. Moving on then, you go to and you exemplify your best traits because quite frankly, that's what it's all about here. If you exemplify your best traits, then you'll go on to benefit. Because this isn't about dodging flaws or covering up trouble. This isn't like an automatic scholarship, for example, where you have to maintain a certain level of progress to continue to reap the benefit. You're not looking to skate by here. At the University of Kansas, one of the things that happens is if you have a 3.4 grade point average, you keep a scholarship. This isn't that. You aren't looking to get that 3.4. This is an opportunity to make yourself truly successful and in a way that can truly make a difference, especially as we all begin to enter the proverbial real world. Ultimately, this is something that will help you. It will take a lot of pressure off of you, especially when you're thinking back to that first time you applied or spoke to someone. What did you want them to know before the conversation started? How did you want to be treated? Did you want to be another random person, another random applicant? They're trying to figure out if you're good? Or did you want them to try and think, I'm looking to impress this person. I know they're the real deal. Ultimately, making sure that your online presence is professional and one that supports you will really benefit you. And ultimately, it will only mean greater things for you in the end.